Hi everyone, welcome to Living La Vita Loca podcast, a retro gaming podcast for some of your retro gaming needs. My name is Faz.
And I'm Rich.
Sorry, I'm just laughing at the idea of the Northern Olympics. It was just sort of
Telling you it's a goer.
we need to... Right, I'm not going to scrub the start of the podcast, but we're going to put a trademark on that. And then
Pop a pin in it.
we'll come back to that. Hi everyone. Sorry. We are here to do I always do that. I always start off with the sermon situation
today.
Sake. Honestly, I need an in. I need a better in. We're doing free play fortnightly this week, so just like a demand. Where we both play a game that we have not told each other that we are playing, and we bring the review to the table. We say the review, and then we score each other's game review based on what the person says. Mm-hmm. That was as good as it gets. So
good job.
There's a bug coming towards my phone. What are you doing here? Like a little fly situation.
Okay.
I don't. Sorry, just like being completely distracted in the podcast world by a fly getting involved in. Anyway, apologies. So, who wants to start? Should I start because you went last time? Even so,
yeah.
Cool.
Do that. I will put my notes away.
I'm eager to get this one out as well. I have played Disco Elysium. Have you played Disco Elysium?
I have a little bit. Yeah. Again, exactly like with Undertale, not as much as I perhaps could have, should have, or would have liked to have.
How much do you think you've managed?
Probably not a heck of a lot. Okay. Early on, there's a strike and all that kind of stuff that you have to try and get past. I've barely got past that on one of my playthroughs, and I must have started the game 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Each time
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've only got past that on one of those playthroughs.
I've heard a few people that have started it and just not been able to just go for it.
I love a lot about what it's doing. I love the narration. I love the voice work. I love the internal monologue stuff. But for whatever reason, it never sticks with me. Exactly like Undertale. So much of it, in theory, I'm behind, and yet.
Yes. So I'm making a real concerted effort to try and play more, at least RPG element games, if you will. Undertale being one of them. This being another. I've always had this kind of on my list to play, and I've actually owned it, as in digitally, for probably about 2 years since we did the 100 greatest games, I think, on our first birthday. And I think this slotted in around number 12, maybe number 10. And I was really intrigued by the artwork of it and what, the commentary around it was. And I absolutely understand that the people that I will sell this podcast to that have played the game before on the Disco Elysium Reddit group, please take this as I completely understand that this is life to some people, and I totally get why. So I will not do this game the amount of justice that unless I spoke about it for about 75 years, I think maybe there is a lot going on in this game. I think if you've played it, you'll never forget it. I think that if you haven't played it yet, or like yourself, you've started it a few times and kind of struggled to get in to it for a long time. This sounds really sort of like bullshit of me, but it'll come. Do you know what I mean? I do firmly believe that. I think I spoke about at the end of the Undertale review. I was like, is this kind of unmissable? I'm probably putting my cards out on the table already to say that this game is absolutely unmissable. Now, is it perfect? No, but I do genuinely believe that everybody should be at least aware of this media and give it a go. That isn't somebody, there will be people that kind of go, no, it's not for me. I totally get that, but there's a lot to unpack with Disco Elysium.
I'll tell you what's just come to mind that I think is a relatively good comparison for where I sit with this game is that it reminds me of some of those great novels that everybody's always saying oh yeah, you need to read this, and you'll start and go I'm not sure. I think I'm still at that I'm not sure kind of phase, but it does strike me as quite a literary game.
It effectively is a novel, really. That is, it's birthed from a novel. Well, it's kind of birthed from an RPG tabletop game that was then the world of which was built then into a novel. So it was released in 2019 initially, and then the final cut, which includes a lot more voiceover work, which is absolutely the way it should be played, as far as I'm concerned. That adds so much to it. But it was developed as a game company, sort of Zaum, which is ZA/UM, and it was written and designed by Robert Kurvitz. So he's like the main designer who's basically credited with things. There are other people who were also involved in that. It was almost like it was developed from a world that was created, like say, from a tabletop RPG with Kurvitz and his friends in the early 2000s. So quite a significant period of time. This has been around in this Estonian culture group, and they like I say, Kurvitz he wrote a novel called The Sacred and Terrible Air, and that came out sort of, I think, the early, I was maybe 2013, 2014.
Right.
It was commercially a complete failure, pretty much, but critically lauded.
Right.
I never really made it much out of Estonia. It's really funny because I've kind of looked into. So at the moment there is a almost like quasi sequel coming out this year called Zero Parades, from the company Zaum, but there was, unfortunately, and a lot of people that know a lot more about Disco Elysium and the lore and want to dig into it more, and will already know this anyway, but there was some horrible sort of litigation sort of things where between Kurvitz and a couple of other people who developed the game. There was some really interesting, and Zaum, and now Zaum, they've split. So basically what you'd say is a lot of the original people, not necessarily just solely the original people, but a lot of the original people who made the game have now left the business, and Zaum have made a sequel that some people don't see as necessarily the true sequel because a lot of the original creators like Kurvitz aren't there. But at the same time, some of the people that were here for Disco Elysium are still there.
Yeah.
And I would say that I'm trying to time this right. So not where this comes out for our podcast, but certainly 2 weeks ago, IGN podcast spoke about it a little bit, about Zero Parades, and actually did a really good job of helping understand what happened with Zaum and Kurvitz and some other parties as well. So it's only like a 15 sort of minute chat about it, but I definitely recommend. They do a much better job than me kind of going into the detail of that. So but yeah, so what is Disco Elysium for people that have never experienced it? So it's kind of like an RPG science fiction game that's set in this fantastical alternate reality. I will go at lengths to describe the setting and how the game works, because that really does set up kind of how I feel about it at the end, because I feel like you need to know everything about it. For me to call this unmissable, I need to make sure I'm giving enough detail. This is the game that, since the podcast started, I've probably thought about the most and written the most about. I won't go through all my notes or anything, but just sort of at least to give you an idea that I do feel like there's a lot to get off my chest about it,
Right.
in a positive way. So
I should have got some biscuits or something.
Shit, really is a biscuit. So, I mean, feel free. I will be talking for a while. You are welcome.
I need to go to Morrison's and back. So I could.
You probably could in time. It's fine. By the time I explain what the idea.
Just play those randomly.
So we're in this alternative reality of a world called Elysium. The setting of this game is specifically set on the sort of, it's called an Iola, but a small island, and you are within the poverty-stricken district of Martinez, in the city of Revachol. So the I would say importantly, 50 years prior to the start of the story, there was a communist revolution in the country, which has since been overthrown itself by a moralist capitalist alliance. I can't go into much more density than that, but you can certainly see from an Estonian point of view where the creators come from. I imagine they've got a really good understanding of the certainly you can see in the game the historical context around what it feels like to live within a communist bloc or originate from a country that is so close to that style of politics. So that and you can definitely tell that the amount of energy that goes into the storytelling around the socio-political sort of setting of the game without it really ever being like, without you ever seeing it. It's all kind of like steeped in the conversations that you have. It's wonderful, and if you're into that, I think that that really helps, and I certainly am into understanding that, and seeing those things through this game was really helpful for me too, because it actually kind of give you little tidbits of, while this is a fantastical science fiction RPG world, that is in, it's very much
Still grounded.
yes, very much grounded in that information, that conversation. So the whilst you've got all that going in the background, and there's so much of it and so much in conversations, that you just click a button and have a conversation with somebody and it will just pop up this huge amount of this, I guess, this tree of conversation that you can have with people, and you feel compelled to go into every single option, because there's so many things it says and does. Whilst I'm saying that, it probably sounds like it's really dense and difficult to kind of think of a way that you're enjoying a video game and kind of going, right, I'm listening to what the game is now, about 90% dialogue, I would say, and you also need to read what's on the screen probably a lot of the time. It just feels like it has something to say with every single conversation that feels really important to you, either to the mystery, which I'll speak about in a second, or to the well, there's two mysteries kind of going on, or the world setting of it as well. Like, and if, like, say, if you let it flow over you, the world sort of like building, if you will, and so you don't have to be necessarily concentrating on every single part of it, like, you know. And I won't lie, I played this through in about 24 hours, I think it was, and you could probably spend, you know, 60-70 hours on one playthrough maybe. You know, if you really kind of did every single little bit of a side quest, and you read every single conversation so it meant something massively to you. I'm playing it to review it on a podcast, you know, and so I won't have seen it. I won't have seen everything, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. But so one of the mysteries is that you wake up as a police detective and you've got no memory of who you are, and you've got a huge hangover. You're not entirely sure where you are or what you're doing. You just start to piece together that you're there to solve a murder case in this sort of poverty-stricken area, and a new police partner turns up called Kim Kitsuragi. He's kind of like your moral compass, if you will. So you can kind of make a lot of different choices where you'd expect somebody that would be possibly that has psychosis or addiction. Anything that you would think that somebody that would really be suffering, that has a lot of suppressed memories. I think that there are a lot of I guess really sorrowful themes in this, where you really feel for your main character, and you kind of like start to see, you know, all the worst parts of yourself that is coming out with this as well, but again in a really cathartic sort of way. And in the meanwhile, Kim is kind of like, you're almost like an avatar that, well, I don't want to reduce him to that, but like he becomes this sort of moral compass of a sort of like, you know, we should be sticking to the job, or, you know, that's for you to think about or worry about, and I don't know I don't know if I have a comment on that. But then also at the same time has his own personality that is his personality, and it really comes through that he's just sort of like a real steadfast warrior who really wants to be there to help you through, even though he doesn't know you from Adam, really. And and there's a lot of Kim Kitsuragi love and art out there, if you will, that comes from this game, and rightly so. He's a wonderfully written character to kind of go with the who the fuck am I and what the fuck am I doing situation going on over here. So you've got that mystery where you're trying to find out a little bit more about yourself, and also that intertwines with your skill tree. So you've got this, I mean, I want to say it's a basic skill tree, because it kind of, I would say it probably is from the RPG tabletops that I've dabbled with when I've been around your house or played, you know, previously, or been part of or tried. I don't think there's necessarily a lot to it, and it kind of pieces itself together nicely as you go through. I wouldn't say there's a lot of tutorial to this either. There is a written tutorial in the menu that you can look at, but I never felt at any point, even somebody who struggles with understanding the rules of RPGs, or, you know, dicey games, I've called them before, this felt like a real natural fit. It didn't feel like it was
Yeah,
too
that's a
difficult to me.
good point. Like, yeah, because I don't remember. Like, I remember it being relatively intuitive
Mm,
and yeah, coming quite naturally. And even when you're just creating the character to start with,
yeah,
such as you do,
yeah.
um, yeah, it explains it. If I remember rightly, and it's a while back, like it kind of treads a fine line between explaining it really, really clearly and also at the same time not really giving you much,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
kind of leaving it open to interpretation.
Absolutely. And whatever magic sauce they've poured on it to make
Yeah,
that happen, it works so well.
yeah. I think it
Um,
kind of weirdly fits with a lot of the themes as well, especially in the early runnings.
yeah. Well, I'd say that carries all the way through. To be
Mm,
honest, that is in it. Its vagueness is brilliant.
yeah,
Like
it's sort of vague in the right ways.
yeah, it
Yeah.
allows it allows so much space for you to impart your personality or what you feel like
Mm,
onto the game, and vice versa. That is in it's got a good way of allowing you to imprint yourself,
mm,
and it gives you enough options to speak through in conversations where you can pretty much. And a lot of the time, it's kind of like it does kind of get down to the point where it's like, where's your political stance on this, or where might your I don't know. I guess where does your moral compass point to
mm.
on this situation as well? There are some tough conversations that you have, but I don't think it ever gets to the point where you feel like you need to necessarily look away. But certainly, as the main character, you know that there are some real gut wrenching moments where it can really go wrong for you
Mm.
if you don't pick the right choices. You can very easily end this game with a bad ending quite early on, like very early on, and if you do the wrong thing or you think the wrong way. But again, for a game to do that. It feels extremely experimental, but it accepts that as an ending. It's almost like, right, you're dead now. Do you know what I mean? Like because X, Y, and Z happened, and you didn't react in the right way, or maybe you did, or maybe you did react in the right way, and that is the right ending for you. And it's almost like you could experience in theory like 10 minutes of this game, and that could be your experience of this game if you just kind of went, that's what happened. It is really wonderful in that way. So going back to that kind of skill tree, then, so there are four main attributes. So you've got your intellect, your psyche, your physique, and your motorics. It's called. I didn't even know it was a real word as in before this. I don't know if it is or isn't. Then you kind of get of that four. You get like 24 like subset attributes that are under those titles, and you earn skill points through your interactions with other people, and it's all just interactions and conversations, really.
Mm.
There are skill checkpoints in this game where you have to. It's again very vague. Certainly for me, it was like on my first playthrough that you don't really understand what you need to be achieving until you achieve it. That is in so there are.
The hangover
Yeah,
experience.
exactly. Yeah, you're very much so. So that there are very clear skill checks as you are working your way through the mystery of who you are
Mm.
and the murder mystery that you're trying to solve as a police. Um, and the, there's quite a linear storyline about what is going on. And there are white checks and red checks. White checks you can fail and you can come back to retry at a certain time once you have gained enough experience in certain areas and different attributes. So you might need more intellect, the attributes that that need to be more maxed out with certain skill points to be able to pass that white check. And but then that will, if you fail that'll just kind of like guard off a little bit of the game like for you for a little while.
Right.
And you might never experience it. There are red checks that are you cannot pass them once you have failed them. That is, and you get one shot at them. Again, I would say that they are few and far between, and they control it really well. That is in almost that I don't think they necessarily want you to fail any red checks, but
Mm.
there might be a couple here and there that you just lock off a bit of the story and that's gone. Like, that is, but I'd say most of them kind of like allow you. They'll kind of intimate what you need to. I'm sure there's a part on the screen somewhere that sort of says, "Oh, you need to increase this attribute before you pass this check." That is in. So they're kind enough to do that every so often, but that isn't for every single check. But apart from that, so it's almost like there's no there's no battling to do or anything like that at all. Like, it's just the battle is to have the conversation with somebody, and not every single person. I'd say nobody is there to help you. That isn't apart from Kim. Everybody wants you to either do something for them, or they don't want you to know what's going on. And you need to spend a long time sort of in this isometric view of this small part of Martinez, just kind of pootling about and talking to people, really. And it's just so wonderful. That is in, it's just so painterly, so beautiful to look at. The music when it kicks in is, not very often, but it just feels like it just sits in the background so beautifully to kind of like give you the idea of what is going on. The way that it portrays the internal poverty that your main character is feeling, and also the external poverty of the area that you're in, is just brilliant. Like, as in, so you, again, I'm speaking just, this is just my experience of the game, but certainly I got it. I just got the feeling, like, as in, it did feel like, like even in the smaller interactions, it did feel like I was able, the same feeling when you're reading a book, almost, that you kind of like, you're percolating internal thoughts at the exact same time to think, this is how I feel, or this is how the author's trying to make me feel, but this is how I feel about it and stuff. And that all those thoughts all the time are always happening, even when you're away from the conversation. You're just kind of traveling across, sorry. I don't want to call it a map of Revocol, because it's very small, the area. And that's what's great about it as well, that you don't go many places. That is in, they're only really sort of 4 or 5 settings of this 25-hour game, that you don't visit too many things. It's just different parts of the game unlock from the different conversations that you're having from the XP that you're gaining. There's
depth rather than breadth.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. There's also like the one thing that really tips it over the edge and just makes it so much fun is your internal thoughts, that kind of like, so once you have interactions, the different attributes that you've given, certainly the type of character you've picked at the start, as you alluded to before, you do kind of like, I picked a sensitive type, and that meant that I have these different sort of attributes. It's a pre-build effectively, and that meant I had a lot of psych attributes, and that actually meant that I had a lot of insight into things, the insight into certain things then become your thoughts effectively, and they're the ones that become strongest to you and probably help you out the most. So I think that the one that I guess spoke to the most in my own mind was called Inland Empire, and it's amazing, the conversations and interactions you have with these. So this is where I really, really enjoyed this. That is in, so it wasn't just like, a dense sort of conversation about socio-political stuff. Nearly everything is fucking hilarious. That is in, it's just there's so much swearing in it. Like, there's just, like with Undertale, the weird subversive nature of sort of these thoughts and things. At one, and certainly if you pick the sensitive, I would definitely, I mean, there's lots of different ways you can do it, but picking the sensitive pre-build means that you can talk to your necktie. It's called your horrific necktie. At one point, quite close to the start of the game, I am talking to my necktie and patting a bin. Do you know what I mean? And I was just like, I thought, it's so me. That's so me as a human being. Like, as in, I can imagine petting a bin and talking to a fucking tie. Like, as in,
it was one of my, when I was playing it through, where I ended up like being utterly obsessed with trying to do karaoke.
Yeah,
and I've never worked out how much of that was my build of the character, or how much of it just happens anyway. And me. I kind of like that.
Yeah, and that's it. I think you start to imprint yourself on it as well.
Yeah.
There are a couple of things that you can fail the game through, like making bad decisions in some cases. I think I died once, and it was quite late on, to be honest. But there are also a health and morale meter that you need to maintain. I would say it feels quite easy to do that. You don't really have any money, again, with obviously the poverty that seems to be kicking about, and you are this massively drunk policeman who doesn't seem to really give a shit, and you're staying at this hostel that you've not really paid for and things. So you do accrue probably enough money, I think, that is in to be able to get by every single day. But like, there are little checks where, like, and don't want to give too much away about the game, but like, one check is make sure you've got 20 dollars in your back pocket by the end of the night because you need to pay for the motel you're staying in, and it's almost like, because if you don't, you're out on the street, and then that X, Y, and Z might happen. So, but you find enough medicine, and I can't remember what it is that you need to take. There's two things, medicine and another, that kind of keep your morale and your health high enough. And also, after a little while, you start to gain XP. If you gain physique XP attributes, then that health bar will grow, for example. And then you can start to buy them in the shop as well. So I never really got to a point where that felt difficult. There are a couple of almost like skill checks where you might lose 2 or 3 health like sort of points like all at once. So definitely a recommendation to keep those topped up. And some of the conversations where the most fun is where somebody's been so horrible to you, or they are putting you down so much that your morale just automatically loses like 3 points, and you're like, yeah, no, I am a shithouse. Thank you. Thanks for reminding me. Me and also my character. Yeah, there's just so many different avenues to go down with that attribute and skill tree. You can also when I talk about like there's like thoughts that is in those thought sort of conversations. I shouldn't have really mixed that word up with something that is actually called thoughts, which is a sort of a side sort of skill tree where you by having certain conversations you pick up thoughts, and these are really deep, dense, and like say I've gone back to that sort of socio-political sort of thinking. That you can start to think about fascism, that is in, for example, and you sort of pick these up, and you then need to spend time and allow those time to build up. So you'll spend an XP point to open those thoughts up, even though you've picked them up. And then after, say, 3 hours of game time, then after you've been walking around having conversations, and time only progresses when you are having conversations, or you can, how do you do it? Or you can read a book. When you're doing that, those thoughts will start to progress, and it'll tell you, this thought is finished, and then that thought will then give you a skill boost in another area. That is, right. If you've got them, you can also lose those thoughts if you want to. Some of the game is early on. I think like when it's trying to teach you about these thoughts, you do have to have the thoughts to progress certain parts of the game. But yeah, so there's kind of like they say, there's 3 things going on. There's the murder mystery, there's the you mystery, and then the world building story, all kind of like in together. These are kind of 27 minutes into the podcast. Here's some thoughts of mine. I thought it was quite a bit, sorry, but just certainly like what I would suggest, again, without trying to give the game away or give too many spoilers and things. But like I say, I really did. I loved playing with the sensitive pre-build. It felt like there was a lot of internal dialogue and a lot that was really, really funny. Like, don't be worried about making mistakes and failing. That is in, and failing all the checks, basically, pretty much. That is in. So you still seem to find your way through the story, even if you fail like quite a few checks. There are some major ones that you kind of go, I don't think I could have passed on to the next part of the story without doing this. I think there was one point where I failed one, and I was like, I really think I shouldn't have failed that one. It's very easy to scum save on this, that is in, so you can just very easily just click a save every so often and stuff. I think a lot of people kind of say, you shouldn't do that because they need some more natural play. If that's your end of your story, that's the end of your story. And I was a bit like, but I kind of want to see how it really ends. So it's a bit like, so I saved quite often. And the reason I save quite often as well, another piece of advice from me, is that I actually played on the Switch version. Do not play this game on the Switch version. It crashes like hell. Yeah. So I discovered after the first hour of then losing an hour's worth of work because I hadn't saved. So yeah, I really wouldn't recommend. And you don't have to. Like when you look out there, like isn't it's pence on Steam? It's like £8 on PS5. Like isn't just pick something more powerful than the Switch to play on, please, because you can. I lost the game after an hour, and no, it was. I think I played for like 3 hours and then I lost an hour's worth of progress. And at that point, I questioned whether or not I was going to go back to it. Yeah. And I was like, no, I'm really enjoying myself. I do need to go back. But when that happens, it's just really demoralizing. So,
2 points off of your moral. Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah. Switch thrown into the river. Something else I need to say as well that is in. So setting up so you pick up different types of clothes as well, and you kind of add to your personality that way, but also they add different skill points and stuff. So you can almost amend your build as you go through with these thoughts and these clothes that you pick up and different items you can hold as well. So once you have a build, that doesn't mean that you cannot change your build almost. And I found myself certainly working towards certain types of build, and there is definitely towards the end of the game, there's a type of attribute that you had to kind of almost max out to get to the point to the next part of the story.
Right.
And it's not necessarily really clear. But then I think that's almost like a way of saying past this point you can't go back, so do some side quests now, kind of thing. That isn't it. Just it's a bit heavy-handed with that, but that was my only kind of issue where like that I felt very pointed in a certain direction, and it would almost just probably save me 3 hours if they just told me earlier on. It's just like you need to fill this one up because otherwise you can't get through this hole here. So yeah, yeah, I'd say that this game certainly feels like it's just all potential. It's just the potential to play this game 50 times over and have a different experience every single time it's just there. Do you know what I mean? Like, isn't that? And I don't think that I've had it as wide reaching as this with a video game before. Like, as in, you know, like, and you are more of a with, I guess, RPG tabletop games and stuff, but I can see how this completely evolved from that process.
Yeah.
Is there any other video games that you've come across where you kind of feel like you've seen that kind of thing happen, as much as I've tried to describe, at least?
I guess it kind of depends. Like, so in terms of like, you know, that kind of feeling of being able to go anywhere and do anything that you can kind of get with the tabletop RPG, Skyrim is the one that kind of comes to mind pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It is not the only one, but it is the most convenient and easy to grasp example. However, the thing with that is that it's more like your actions in the world feel like you have myriad options, whereas with Disco Elysium, it always felt like it was the thoughts and conversations, where the actions potentially, arguably, pretty limited.
It is very much so,
yeah. And so I think in terms of that feeling of being able to say almost anything and think a bunch of different things, and even have some of those thoughts have conversations with themselves.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I came across that at least once.
Yes. Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
I would struggle to name another game that does it the way this game does.
Yeah. And to say that, and then also to say that it does it really, really well as well.
Oh,
like,
yeah, it's entertaining.
So I think this is probably the best adult video game I've ever played. That is in so.
Yeah, it ain't going to be one you're giving to your kids.
No, that is in. You need to have.
Daddy, what's fascism?
I think you need to maybe even sin some shit yourself, or just or know that of bad things out there in the world, because this just helps you understand. That is in, you know, that the thought process certainly of your main character. You know, it's just so fucking human, like, as in, you know, and it just feels like the constant battle of keeping your shit together every single day. It's just something that everybody goes through, but that this person's gone through to the nth degree. But you can just kind of pick out little bits where you just kind of go, fuck, I get you, man. I just get you. Do you know what I mean? I get you. You know, just want to lay down in a puddle and you're fucking, you know, like, as in some random pair of pants you found in a field or whatever. Just like, just drink it all away. Like, I get it.
Those days when grappling with socioeconomic concepts is just too big and you just need to talk to your tie and stroke a bit.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and just the relatability of it is just wonderful. You know,
I never thought of it like that, but you're absolutely right.
It feels like it just takes a swing at everything. It just feels like it just all concepts everywhere ever. Like, isn't it? Just feels like this game, this like novelization.
There are no correct answers.
Yeah, and it just takes a swing and it doesn't land everything at all. But like, it's in, you know, it just has such a wide-reaching sort of like way of kind of trying to get you just to think about everything all at once, everything everywhere all at once. That is in, and all that makes it. And I keep on trying to come back to the point that all that sounds like terrifying and scary and too much and, you know, far too dense. But it's not. It seems to keep it airy and jovial enough almost in a way as well to be able to kind of, you know, sort of keep reminding you that, you know, like, again, with life and being a human and stuff like that, there are, you know, you'd hope for 99% of the population enough in the background to kind of go find all the funny bits in life that, you know, make you laugh. The little scouse wanker who just keeps on sort of saying that he's the most confident person in the entire world, and just sort of like, you know, it'll be saying things like, oh, what is he, like, you know, some of the like a sentence that wasn't even necessarily his best sentence, but made me laugh the most. But it was like, absolute maximum velocity fucko and stuff that I just like, you're like, oh god, you're like, that, what does that even mean? That's so weird and funny. Like, as in, you know, it just, you know, it just uses the C word so much. You're just like, just like, yeah, there's just so much that you just kind of can, like I said before, relate to. You know, I think at one point, I think I probably fell in love with a necktie. You know, yeah, the ending is batshit insane. Certainly the one that I got, there are several, I think there's like 4 or 5 you can get. Mine, I think when I read afterwards, is a positive one, and it's still absolutely mental off the chain. Like, as in, to the point where I was like, do I even like this ending? I don't know, but it has something to say. That is in, so that, you know, that is in, really, it had something to say. I grappled with what that was for a long time. That is in, but again, I was at least feeling my thoughts being provoked by it.
Yeah.
And then I've still got my necktie and my you know, my angry Scouse boy. That is in, you know, it's absolutely fine. So, and who can be involved in one of the endings apparently, which I didn't get to, and I kind of bit like, oh, I kind of want to go back and see that ending now. So yeah, I could go on and on and on, but yeah, I just think that it's one, you know, to round it off as just one of a kind, absolutely one of a kind. It's certainly not perfect, and it certainly won't be for every single person, but I definitely just think it's unique. Just one of those unicorns that I just think that, you know, I can totally see why it lands in sort of top 10s, top 15s of best games ever made, because I can't think of anything else that has made me feel the way I felt playing this video game. You know, and just thinking that isn't, you know, did it change me as a human being? No. I feel like those thoughts were kind of maybe already kind of all there, sort of dotting about anyway, and that's maybe why I got on with it so well. I think some people, it will change their lives. I do think that it could have that impact on them, and I think some people will just kind of go, "What is this shit?" That isn't. It's just, you know. But yeah, it just sat in the wheelhouse for me, just to be like, yeah. And for somebody that struggles to play video games over 15 hours long, that is in, you know, I find that that's kind of a cap for a story that I'm really enjoying. That is in, for this being 25 hours, it blew by. It just, you know, it was so easy to keep coming back to, and just picking up again the next night and kind of going and just trying to find out who you are. You know, who did the murder? Is in, you know, in the background, you've got these two simple things going on, and then the world building as well. That is in, just feeling like you're living in this world. Yeah, brilliant. Nice. 10 out of 10 by, you know, a country mile. That is in, like we always say, that doesn't mean a game is perfect, but yeah, it just, I am very pleased that I managed to get through this game at least once, and I can imagine a world where, you know, after the podcast is finished, you know, whenever that may be, that isn't, I'm kind of going, right, I'm just going to go play Disco Elysium another 25 times in a row. Because there's so many different options you haven't experienced. And in the one playthrough, there was so much seen, and actually there's, you know, so much more to go back to and do things in a different way. So I do think that it'll be one of those things that, reading your favourite book again over and over.
I get that.
And finding something different every single time. So yeah, that wasn't too bad. 39 minutes. I did genuinely think I'd probably speak about it for an hour. So
well, I was wondering if I was going to have to score it, and I was like, am I going to knock a point off?
Oh shit! Sorry, yeah, you were meant to score it.
No, I was going to give it 10 out of 10. Yeah, the question, that was why I didn't. That's why I just let it pass. It was like, yeah, it's fine. But the one thing that I was going to ask was like, because I know when I played it on Switch, I've got it on Steam now. But when I did play it on Switch, yeah, I came a cropper with some technical woes. Absolutely. And it was whether or not you felt they were bad enough, particularly on Switch, to warrant knocking a point off. Personally, from what I played, I would have said no, which is why I still would have gone 10 out of 10. But I just wanted to see what you reckoned.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that I lost an hour's play time and then went, well, that's not going to affect me. I need to go back and keep playing this game.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
just
as in,
went straight back in.
Yeah, it just
Yeah.
I went back through that hour and probably made a couple of better choices, I think, in my own mind.
Learned from it.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
I was like, oh yeah, I fucked that up. And to be honest, actually, for an hour's gameplay, because I knew what the quicker options were, I probably got back through it in about 20 minutes because I was a bit like, actually, I've asked those questions, and that I probably didn't, because some of the questions don't lead to anything. So I'm going back to talk about it, but some of the questions don't lead to anything. Some of them are just background story that is in. So actually, you can probably get, if you really want to speed run your way through Disco Elysium, and you could, you've kind of already played it once before, you probably get through it in 15 hours, I reckon. Like, is in picking the whatever, I don't know, the right options are, inverted commas. But yeah, sorry, I'm going to stop talking about it now.
Quite all right. Quite all right. Yeah. What have I got for you? So there's anybody that's listened for a while will know about a particular sword of Damocles that's been dangling over us, and that shit is coming down.
Oh,
we are doing WWF No Mercy. And I'm going to squeeze it in quickly after your Disco Elysium review. Yeah, so year 2000.
Yeah.
Fuck, I'm old.
Yeah. Good times, though.
Over on the N64. This is, I would think it's fair to say, relatively widely regarded as one of, if not the best wrestling game of all time.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people, myself included, would quite happily see it just get a re-release.
Yeah.
Maybe update the roster if you're feeling that way inclined.
Or just give you the option.
Or just
have,
exactly.
A roster, B roster kind of thing.
Yeah. As it is, people are still out there modding it and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, like the AEW game that came out a few years back was based pretty heavily on it, so it's still got some influence. I mean, that game wasn't so great.
Yeah. I didn't know that. Okay.
But yeah, no, it, like, playing them back to back, you can definitely see the influence and the through thread. Not necessarily always for the better, I think it's fair to say. But yeah, it's there. So this was the last of the, and I can't remember if it's meant to be Aki or AKI, one or the other, and Asmic, but they did a bunch of them on the N64. And yeah, it still holds up. It's the short version. I mean, it's blocky as fuck to look at, right? And the
Stone Cold's head.
Well, everything. And it does that thing where it's like a polygon with what looks like a really bad Photoshop job, just of a face slapped on a box. But holy hell, the amount of like charm that's
what makes it so special, right?
Yeah, exactly. It tries really, really hard with the presentation, and it tries to give it like a TV-like presentation where it can. It doesn't always stick the landing because it's an N64 game from the year 2000. But like, it tries, and you've got to give it points for that. After the designs in the intro, like there's a lot of like text and logos and things scrolling by, and fuck me, it's all over the shop. Like, it's a completely incoherent design. But like, at the time, my God, I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't able to watch WWF TV,
right?
Because we never had Sky or anything like that, which is what they showed it on in the UK. So I'd only ever be able to catch it in passing at a friend's house, and I could probably count on one hand the number of times I ever actually watched it properly. All of my knowledge of WWF from this era are from the video games, this and WrestleMania 2000.
Which is fair, because that will be a lot of people. Like, I think you're exactly right.
And you add in the fact that it's a video game, and in real life pro wrestling, they're not actually trying to hurt each other too badly. And weirdly, here you are in a game trying to beat the absolute shit out of people. But yeah, like it's kind of weird going back and going like, oh yeah, this is how come I know about that person or what have you. So it's got a decent range of options, again, considering when it came out. And you can, make your own pay-per-views, and there's a tournament mode. The character customization options are ridiculous for the time and all that. Ladder matches.
I think you mentioned that before when you've been reviewing something else. You were saying it was like, just a king for sort of like, like, do different shit too.
The amount of time I spent making stuff
Yeah.
back in the day. And like also I distinctly recall like mucking about with, and I can't remember if it was this or WrestleMania 2000, but I swear there was a cheat cartridge involved at one point, and that was helping you to like recreate that match where the Undertaker and Kane were in the ring was surrounded by fire and shit like that. And yeah, all sorts of like nutty things you could do with it. I think, and I try not to, when I'm going to be talking about something, I try not to go too big on like watching other people's reviews. But I did for this, along with like WrestleMania 2000 and other game that I will come to, just to refresh my memory on a couple of bits. And one of the points that was made was the kind of one that I couldn't ignore, and it was like, you know what, that is a good point. And they reckoned that the weak point in No Mercy is the sound. And you go back and you're like, holy shit! Like the official entrance music and stuff like that is there, but it's so compressed and low quality.
It's really tinny, isn't it?
Yeah,
Awful.
I think I remember that being, so bad. Yeah. And I mean, like the N64 doesn't sound great at the best of times. Like all of the music does that, like kind of like not quite bleepy, blarpy, rauque kind of noise.
Yeah,
it's not great as it is, but it still sounds better than the licensed music. And then you add in like the entrance videos and stuff like that, which are basically like really, really low quality PowerPoint presentations that someone's just flicking between the slides really quickly, rather than actual video and stuff like that. And I think it's the emphasis is it's trying with the presentation, but I think like for every bit of like questionable quality like that, it's still, you still get the wrestlers like walking down the ramp. There's still pyrotechnic. There's still like extra bells and whistles they didn't need to put in.
Yeah, so much goes into it.
Yeah. But I think the highlight is still the menu music that kind of, you get little additions and shifts and things change and instruments get added in or taken away as you move through the different bits, which I still think is pretty cool. The problem is that you have that dig dog like loop just forever.
I feel like from just, I don't know what I'm basing this on, but I feel like people remember this as being probably the game you'd want to spend the most time in the menus with, almost like doing different things and
especially if you're making
around and things.
If you're making a wrestler and stuff like that, you're going to be in and out of menus, and that's before you start like getting partway through and like, oh, I needed to go back to the shop to buy this.
Yeah.
And then you hop back and then you hop in. Oh, I could have done this as well. And you go back and forward. And yeah, like you can absolutely spend a long time in the menus, and it's a not unpleasant experience, weirdly. You've got a lot of big names on the roster, a lot of questionable ones that are just like, who the hell is this? And then you've got some unlockables as well, which is always good fun. And yeah, the actual like in-ring action is still really, really good. So light and heavy grapples, light and heavy strikes. You can, run, climb stuff, and depending on which direction you're pressing on the pad, when you're pressing the strike or grapple button, different moves are gonna come out. What's kind of odd, going back to it after so long, and especially having hopped back on the bandwagon of watching wrestling more regularly. Full disclosure, I am a regular viewer of AEW, occasional viewer of New Japan stuff. I've tried getting back into WWE. It's just not for me. If it's for you, that's absolutely fine. It just doesn't tickle my pickle. And that kind of tracks. Back in the day, I could only watch WCW rather than WWF. I think I'm just naturally geared towards the alternative. But what struck me about this was like, when you think of the Attitude Era, right, and it could just be me, but I always think of it as being like wall-to-wall chaos. And like matches were quick, they moved fast, stuff happened like all the frigging time. Playing this, everything's a bit more methodical and a little bit more considered and chunky. And I guess like where I was trying to work out what was going on with it was like, is it is it chunky and just like hefty and heavy,
Mm.
or is it just clunky and
Yeah.
it's just not as smooth and chaotic as I remember? And I was sitting there, it's like, well, it's Japanese developers, and this is based on something else, right?
Mm.
And that other game, there was it was Virtual Pro Wrestling 64 2,
Okay.
which is a nice, sensible title. But that came out, it was developed a broadly similar time to WrestleMania 2000,
Mm.
and came out basically between WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy, but in Japan. And I was like, you know what? In the name of science,
I'm gonna go see.
I'm going to track this down. And like, lo and behold, oh my giddy aunt, 2026 Richard is so pleased with this move. Fuck! Like, it plays like No Mercy in WrestleMania 2000, but it's got a bunch of All Japan people in it, New Japan,
nice.
MMA,
Yeah.
people pop up, like the Pride Japan stuff. Like, there's all sorts. Like, it's almost like a kind of, cross-promotional thing.
Yeah.
Now, this is probably a gross oversimplification and generalization, but the way I see it is that Japanese wrestling tries to go out of its way to make you think it's a sport, right? Much more so than sports entertainment, which leans a bit more towards entertainment. And lo and behold, you see it through that lens, and you play Virtual Pro Wrestling 64 2, and you're like, oh, this is where it comes from.
Okay.
And the kind of trigger for all this was when I was playing No Mercy. You remember if you can block and you can kind of step back from grapples and stuff like that as your sort of defensive moves and counter stuff. When you block, you don't block. You stand there and stick your chest out.
Okay.
And I've always wondered why that was, because nobody ever I don't remember seeing anybody do it in American wrestling at the time. But 2026 Richard knows damn well that is like inviting contact like that and just going like, yeah, I'm big and tough, hit me as hard as you bloody like, is Japanese wrestling through and through. Like, it's strong style, like it's fighting spirit. It's, I will take this beating and I will get back up and kick your teeth in. And like, seeing that engine, that gameplay in that setting, it just clicked. It was like, oh, holy hell, this is like, I get it now. This makes so much sense. And not only that, but like, it was really, really cool to see how different the presentation was on what is effectively the same game engine. So like in the Japanese one, when they're coming to the ring, there'll be a short scene of them in the locker room just standing there. There will be some generic music, and they will walk to the ring, but they will basically be at the ring already. There's barely any pyro, there's barely any theatrics. You get a ring announcer announcing them when they're in the ring in their corner. Yeah. And that's it. And it's really interesting to see the amount of effort they put in to Americanize this product and put that WWF stamp on it, and all of the American trappings from professional wrestling and their own flavor of it.
Yeah, that entertainment thing that you talk about. And
that goes to the story mode as well, where you have these branching paths and there's storylines. It's not well written. Like, it's not, but it's there. And you have these characters going like, oh, you got to watch yourself, and then I'm going to beat you up in the boiler room. And then if you win the match, you can go on to King of the Ring. And if you lose the match, you can't, I guess.
The fucking boiler room.
Yeah. But like,
on the boiler room.
But the point is, it's there. It's got it. It's got these bits and bobs. Whereas Virtual Pro Wrestling 64 2 has different game modes, has a different move set and stuff like that. And I would happily bet, I didn't sit and go through all of them, but I would happily bet that all of the moves are in No Mercy still. They're just in the character creator. Yeah. So if you want to create somebody that is flying around like, whatever, you probably could. Yeah. But it's not necessarily going to be in the default movesets for the characters that are in the roster to start with, because that's just not what the American style was like. So yeah, it was really interesting to go back as that kind of history lesson and see it in a kind of new light. And like, it still plays well, but I found myself appreciating it in a completely different way. Yeah. To before. And like, even just stuff like, oh, if I'm getting weapons, I'm reaching into the crowd to get them out rather than going under the ring. Whereas if I'm watching American wrestling on telly, time was they would always be going under the ring. Why are they reaching into the crowd? Again, kind of like a New Japan type thing. Like, you'll get thrown to the crowd and people will be using tables and chairs and stuff like that that are, littering the place. Like it's all those little bits and bobs where it was really interesting to see what stayed, what changed,
Yeah.
and how it shifted.
That's really cool to kind of go back and find, though. You should be proud of your 2026,
I'm
Richard.
really proud.
Like, to go and find out those little things that actually, I guess, really reach into the historical ways that games have been made, and actually you just take for granted when you're a kid playing as a 12-year-old and stuff. And you can go back as an adult and see it in a different sort of lens.
Yeah, I guess that's my point. Like at the time, I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I've come on this podcast plenty of times, and I've taken a game that I really enjoyed, and then I played it again, and I've been like, kind of down on it.
Yeah.
It's been really, really nice to go back to a game and go like, sure, it sounds like shit. Sure, there are times when it looks like shit. There's no commentary. That's probably for the best. But like, the gameplay still holds up, and not only that, there's a whole other level of appreciation of the effort, the creativity, I guess, the audacity potentially to even like it. I was expecting it to just basically come across as like a reskin and a relatively slapdash deal, but no, like this was a really considered localization effort, and I think that has helped No Mercy just have this staying power, where people are still to this day playing it, appreciating it, wanting another release, wanting an updated version of it. So yeah, like it's on paper relatively straightforward, but I think in practice there is so
much more to it.
Yeah. And that's much like wrestling itself.
That's the thing about like when we bring a game to the table. It's almost like there are ways of reviewing things and kind of going, right, okay, you could just say what is on paper, but actually you explaining all the intricacies that have been brought by that localization there makes me appreciate it even more so as well. That it's all, and I'd like to go away and play No Mercy now, just sort of to get the feel of what that feels, and because I'm less understanding of the lore than you are, and also understanding of the different mechanics to the different types of wrestling, so it won't necessarily hit me the same way, and it might not hit the people who listen to this the same way. But if you are a massive wrestling fan, actually might go, oh right, brilliant, I'll go check that out and see what the differences are. So yeah, I think that whilst you say it can be on paper seem very much just like a 2000s video game that everyone's got nice nostalgia for, but actually sounds like it's really cool to play that nowadays and add you've added something else to the experience by doing it.
Yeah, and I think like it is faintly damning that it hasn't been convincingly surpassed. I think is fair to say. Like presentation wise, obviously yes, but gameplay wise, there is just something about that source that it's got that it just is simple, but there's a lot of depth there. What was kind of cool about Virtual Pro Wrestling 64 2, which I really should have abbreviated somehow, was like the MMA touches that they keep in, and like there's striking combinations and stuff like that. So there's even some like mechanical differences that you can sink your teeth into. That again, I think is reflective of Japanese versus American wrestling and the kind of emphases they had. The big kind of question mark, I guess, when it comes to scores, etc. Originally on the N64, No Mercy did have an infamous save bug that for all of the fun with creating stuff and unlocking stuff would just almost at random, for no discernible reason, wipe your save file.
I'm into that. That adds for me.
That chaos.
That's two games we've got tonight now that are just wiping saves.
So there was like a replacement scheme that now means that those replacement cartridges are like crazy expensive and rare. So if you are buying it, depending on which version you end up getting, it could be a little bit of a lottery. But I think for the N64 at least, it's still relatively affordable if you're that way inclined.
Yeah.
It's 2026. I imagine the vast majority of people are going to be playing this emulated.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine that the save bug is probably not there
Yeah,
now
it's probably fine.
if you are playing it on emulation, but I don't know.
If it's not, emulate it in. Get it
Well,
in there.
if not, you could emulate it out. I'm sure somebody's modded it.
No, bring it in.
But yeah, like I guess that's the only kind of consideration is like I don't really know if that would impact the scoring too much. But just figured it was worth a mention.
But I think that adds just to the pile of jank you've spoken about, like as in an almost like not in a bad way. That is in, and that's, I don't know. There's something about a game that it becomes so infamous for certain things that is that not. That's so stupid.
Part of the
is
legend.
is that not just positive? Like, is it not just like?
Yeah, maybe. I guess there's an argument for it. I mean, on the flip side, like it is 2026. If anybody's going to get bent out of shape over a 26-year-old save file disappearing, you probably need to go get a real problem.
Yeah.
So
take a chop across the chest. Fine.
On the flip side, though, Virtua Pro Wrestling 64 2, which now I've gone this far, I will continue to say in its entirety. Okay. The cartridge that I got still has the save file on it from like 2002.
Oh, really?
Which
wow,
is brilliant.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that was fun.
The irony of that game having a long-lasting save file versus No Mercy wiping all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you want a score for that one too? Played it
no, I don't think I've played it enough. Like it's, well, hang on. Let me clarify that a bit. I haven't played it much, but I think I have played it enough to confidently say it's different enough that I think it should be a different review at some point.
Fair enough.
Don't get me wrong, there are a hell of a lot of similarities. It's the same engine and all that kind of stuff, but like there are a couple of different modes and stuff like that as well. Like there's this fun sort of team-based thing that's kind of winner stays on, but like 5-on-5.
Oh, cool.
Which I had a quick trot through the menu on WrestleMania 2000 as well, just in case it was there, but I can't see an equivalent in the American ones. It's that sort of thing where they've actually got entirely different modes as well as entirely different mechanics in places. So yeah, I think it's different enough that we'll probably do it at a different time.
Yeah, fair enough. Oh, how do I do this without breaking your heart, but also keeping it in the same. Right. What am I thinking that you're thinking? That's what I need to think here. I think you're thinking a 9.
Yeah, I'm thinking a 9.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Good. I always need to add one more for you.
To be honest with you, there was
You're very much a glass half full person, even though you wouldn't like to admit that.
No, I wouldn't like to admit that. But like,
I've just done it on audio podcast form.
It's fine, we're in now, aren't we? Yeah, I think 9 is fair. Like, when I started talking, I was thinking 8. But then I was like, you know what? No.
Yeah. You can't make me mind.
Yeah, it has managed to stay fresh and interesting.
Yeah.
And I think interesting is the key word. Like, especially after 3 years of going back to some of these old games from my childhood and going like, okay, I've changed. Right, yeah. I've moved on.
Yeah. This isn't a Need for Speed Underground situation.
No, exactly. Like, and I think finding that way to make it interesting counted for a lot. Yeah. And for it to actually kind of deliver after the fact, kudos.
I'm super glad for you.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm glad for me too.
Right. Well, I'm really sorry that I took up all the time talking about Disco Elysium. Well, I'm actually not. I'm really
didn't
not.
think you would be.
No. But I was just trying to be polite anyway. But yeah, it's nice to kind of have those two sort of bookends of things that we can kind of say a game from 2000 that everyone has loads of love and nostalgia from. It's almost like, and then you can kind of come to something that has become a modern classic as well. To sort of, I think that those two are partners. No Mercy and Disco Elysium on this podcast. That is in, where else is doing that? probably nowhere else that, like everyone else is just like, doing something clever and we're just stroking neckties and, and throwing each other out the ring.
Knife-edged chops.
Anyway, thank you very much for listening, guys, and we will speak to you again very soon.
Cheers.